So this is the second video of my 5 video series about the IMDB top 250 list. So I'll review 50 movies per video. Let's see, the last one was Dr. Strangelove, and it's not one of my favorite movies. I think it's okay, but I think it's a bit overrated in how deep it is and how philosophical it is and how well it explains an issue via sarcasm and irony. So for me it's pretty basic, and I do understand that it's a movie made for intelligent people, but I think that war has been explained in more intelligent ways in other kind of movies. Let's see, Sunset Boulevard, again, it's I know that the movies on the list are pretty beloved, but for me this is not one of my favorite movies. Again, I think the story is a bit simplified, and if you compare it to modern thrillers or modern drama movies, it doesn't really live up to these modern kind of movies. It's pretty simplified, and it's made in 1950, so I would guess that back then it was a bit groundbreaking, but today it does feel a bit simple and silly at times. Billy Wilder, I like him actually. And The Prestige, it's such a great movie, highly rewatchable. The script is great, the twists are coming at the right times, and everything makes sense, so every character plays a really important part in the story. If you take one character out of the movie, then the movie doesn't make sense. So everything fits into place, and there's so many different things like magic and technology and intrigue, drama, jealousy, stuff like that. It's so great, and it's again some of the basic conflicts. For example, the Tesla and Edison conflict are presented here in the movie in a really exciting way. So it's not really how it was in real life, but it's presented in an interesting way. And Alien, again, it's a basic horror movie. Back in '79, I would guess it was pretty groundbreaking because it's well made and it's in space, and it's one of the first well made horror movies in space. So for that we should be grateful. But Aliens 2 is so much better. This is a basic horror movie, running from the monster and then later trying to kill the monster. So it's just that, a full movie of that, but it's well made and it's not bad at all. The Lion King, actually I don't know why I only gave it 7, because I think I watched it a long time ago and gave it 7. Rewatched it, and yeah, it's kinda, of course, for adults, adults don't always love cartoons, but this is such a well-made cartoon and such a well-produced story that it's hard to dislike it actually. And if someone told me it was one of their favorite movies, I would totally understand it completely. And at least if you're a kid, then it should be a must see. One of the best cartoons ever made. But yeah, sometimes you see a movie and you see that it's great and you're interested in the story, you like the music, but then it doesn't really touch you because maybe it doesn't present life as you understand it, a story that's close to your heart. That's why you sometimes, at least I do, sometimes rate movies a bit lower than some other people would. For example, if you're a teenage girl, you probably love movies like Twilight because they are showing you your own problems and your own sufferings, about having a dad that's away or something like that, or having a guy that you like. So, but for me, a movie like Twilight would not illustrate my life. The problems presented in the movie would, for me, seem a bit silly and simple. That's just different ways of living, different ways of understanding the world. The Great Dictator made 7 years into Hitler's reign, so I think it was written before Hitler started World War II. So it was kind of, in that way, people still think it was a bit, he kind of predicted how things would go. But Hitler was insane from year one. Even when he was elected in 1933, he was pretty insane in what he said and what he did. So not a big surprise. But yeah, when you attack a lot of countries at once, you show that you're insane and not just crazy. And I like the movie. Well made, good speeches, good storyline, interesting. One of Charlie Chaplin's better movies. The Life of Others. Again, this actually feels like it's a true story, because this is actually, a lot of it is actually what really went on in East Berlin. So it's a closed down area, and they're like one spy for every 60 people. So everything is watched. Everything you do is watched, and no matter what, someone will tell on you. So a neighbor, one of your kids, your spouse, someone will tell on you. And this is how it is to live in a communist society. And this is not a bad view into that kind of society, but I think it's a bit boring view. It's really slow paced. You can see it's a bit long, like most movies on the list. You can see they are pretty long. And you can see a lot of these movies are just like with Oscars. They tend to be a bit longer, 2 hours or more. And sometimes I think the story should be told in the time it should be told, and not stretched out into 2 hours or 3 hours. Sometimes the story is just not there for 2 hours. And with the Life of Others, it does feel kind of like an Oscar bait. So it does feel kind of pretentious at times, like trying to be deep, trying to make you feel sad, or trying to make you be irritated or feel hate towards a person. Stretch out in that. It always tries to juggle your feelings. It doesn't always work. Cinema Paradiso, there are 2 versions of that. I think maybe I saw the long version. I know that's a long and short version, but I'm pretty sure I would hate either version. I really, really disliked it. There's not really a story there, it's just a guy who owns a cinema, and you see him grow up. So it's kind of, I don't know, what do we call these movies? Kind of grow up movies. Yeah, but not a clear storyline, and it's again, it's not English speaking, so it does feel kind of a bit Oscar baity. In that it feels really, really pretentious at times. The Shining, again, good horror movie. The long version is not the director's cut. The short version is the director's cut. So, and I watched the long version, and you could really see that it was stretched out. There were a lot of scenes that should have been cut from that version. So, but either way, it's a really, really simple story. There's not much to the movie. It's more or less a horror flick that should be really, really short. Again, Stanley Kubrick. And what I do appreciate about Stanley Kubrick is that he takes his time to select the cinematography, select his the places where he films stuff, and how the people will stand in one area, how everything is set up. So every set looks really beautiful, and the camera work is really tight. But at times it can feel too constructed. And when it does that, then it doesn't really feel like a movie. It feels more like a theater play. Actually, this is one of probably his best movie, I would say. Paths of Glory. It's a black and white Stanley Kubrick movie. This is one from 57, so this is from 80. And I think he really, this is one of his deeper movies, while the other movies are kind of simplified, like The Shining, really simple basic horror movie. This one has more depth to it and more deep discussions. They're not just philosophical discussions that are made to seem deep, but this is actually a real topic and real things are happening here. But it is a simple movie. Once again, it's Stanley Kubrick. He is making his own movies, making his own storylines, and when only one person is responsible for that much, you only get his ideas into the movie. And it does feel like it's lacking something more. Django Unchained, not bad movie. Again, Quentin Tarantino. Again, the start, I love the first 5 movies of the movie. The first 5 minutes of the movie are amazing. I love them, and it does continue into a well-structured story, and it really puts you into the age and into his shoes. So everything you see, it's fascinating. You want to know more about the story, but then once again there's a big bloodbath, like in all his movies, and the movie kind of falls apart at the end, like in many other movies. For example, The Hateful Eight. Again, it falls apart because there's a well-structured story, and then suddenly, boo, bad guy appears, or boo, good guy does something. Everything changes. A lot of guys get shot up, and yeah, a lot of guys die. So a lot of excitement, but it does feel out of place, and the story is not progressing, because if people just die randomly, it's not a story progression. The Dark Knight Rises. Okay, I don't know what the hell it's doing on this list, because I get that some Oscar bait movies are pretentious movies. They are beloved at times, and then maybe after some years people will agree that they are silly and they are too stuck up. But this Dark Knight Rises, I don't know what the hell, probably not even top 5 Batman movies. It jumps from scene to scene all the time. There's a lot of characters in it. It's like 1 hour of the movie is missing, because it jumps so much from scene to scene, and you're not really in the moment, because you follow one character, for example Robin, you follow him, and then suddenly jumps to another scene with Batman, and then jumps again to another scene. So it kind of jumps from scene to scene. It does maybe feel a bit like a comic book actually. So, but still, even for a comic book, it jumps too much from scene to scene. It just not only confusing, but when you can't follow the story, the fluency in the story, then it falls apart and becomes weird. Wall-E, again, I gave it 7. A lot of people love it. I love the first 30 minutes of the movie. Great. Then it changes, and it's a basic movie, and it has a deep point to tell. And I do think that all kids should watch it, because there's a lot of philosophical arguments in the movie to be made. So I like it, but it's not one of the greatest cartoons ever made. One of the greatest 3D cartoons ever made. Not at all. American Beauty, what can I say? It's perfect. It's kind of like people say he's a foreigner making a movie about USA. So a lot of people don't like him because of that. Sam Mendes, they dislike him because they think that he made a caricature of USA. That's the point of movies. We always make a caricature of something, right? You cannot show everything at once. Even when you make a documentary, you cannot show everything in a country. Make a documentary about Norway, you have to interview some kind of people, right? Show one side of the country. And this is what American Beauty is. It's kind of an over-the-top presentation of Americans. The soldier, the worker, the housewife, the teenager. Yeah, one of the best movies ever made. Totally. Grave of Fireflies, again a true story. This is a cartoon, and it's really depressing. It should really have been a movie, because there's not much going on. We just see a lot of suffering. It's made. There's a famous photograph of this young teenager, and his little sister on his back, and his little sister is dead on his back. So they found inspiration from that photograph because it's really famous in Japan. It kind of shows that the evil Americans that bombed Japan, and yeah, of course we all love to see the suffering our country experienced in World War II, and this is the suffering that the Japanese can watch about their own country. But I don't know. I'll rather just look at the photograph because that's what it is. It is, yeah, it's kind of again too much dependent on being emotional and too little dependent on story structure. Aliens, that's such a great action movie, one of the best action movies ever made, along with of course Terminator 2. This one really hits all the notes. It's by far better than the first one, and the best in the series by far. And this is James Cameron. He also made Terminator 2, so he really knew his craft at that point in time. And everything about it just feels perfect. You really feel like you're on a foreign planet. And every special effect is also great because I don't think they're using computers that much. At least in '86, that you can maybe draw a few lines on the computer. That's it, right? You couldn't do much more than that. So every special effects look great too. The acting is great. The story structure is great. All the characters fit into the story. Citizen Kane, 9. I like it. Again, this is on the list. Not because it's one of the greatest movies ever made. I do think it's a great movie. It's perfectly made. The story might be a bit simple, but as a movie it works, and it does present you with an archetypical movie. So if I had to tell people how to make a movie, I'd probably say try to imitate Citizen Kane. Try to make it something like that, because everything just works in the movie. Everything fits into place. But it's not much more than that. The reason that it's beloved in USA, like many of the other movies on the list, is because it tells a story about a rich guy that doesn't really find fulfillment in being rich by itself. He needs something more. And that's what poor people want to see in a movie. We want to see rich guys and rich women suffering a lot, because we want them to tell us that being rich is not as great as it seems. Because when we are poor, we don't want to see a movie about poor people suffering and rich guys getting away with stepping on poor people. Sometimes we just want the movie to tell us that we are right, that poor people are super nice and rich people are assholes. Not by, at least in America, that's a big fuck you to the American dream. And since the American dream is such a big part of USA, a fuck you to the American dream will also be a big part of USA and American culture. And that's exactly what Citizen Kane is. It could have been forgotten. It's not, because now it's a central part of the culture. Just like in your country you have some kind of culture, some kind of things that a lot of people think are correct. A lot of culture, religion, stuff like that, politics. And then again, the critique of that culture, that age-old culture and indoctrination, will again be popular, because it's something that everyone has thought about. What if I'm wrong? What if my culture is not perfect? Not by Northwest. It's kind of preliminary James Bond movie. Hitchcock again. It does feel a bit like a James Bond movie, but it's not quite there. It's a bit too slow paced, like most of Alfred Hitchcock movies. They do feel really slow paced compared to modern movies, and too much slow paced, because most of modern movies are too fast paced. So you just jump from scene to scene. But this is a bit too slow and too simplified for an agent story or thriller. Modern thrillers have much more story elements to them. They have much better actors, much better female. The female character is just awful. She's so boring. She doesn't have any kind of personality. She's just following along with the super cool action hero that's Cary Grant who's also a bit boring. He doesn't really have more facets to his persona. So Alfred Hitchcock liked these kind of straight guys, just straight up heroes, right? That do no wrong. They always do the correct thing, and that's boring. That's why we have the James Bond we have today, semi-alcoholic and fighting and breaking stuff. Princess Mononoke. Again, this is actually one of I like the nature element of this movie. Again, the famous director. So I like how it presented that the story element, that we need to look after our nature. We need to look after animals and trees and stuff like that. And it's so well drawn. It's really, really beautiful cartoon. But again, the story is a bit too simple. It's not just that it's childish, because it is, but it's also because the story is too simple to really draw you in. So you're drawn in by the drawings, you draw in by the beautiful colors you see. Old Boy, again, one of the best movies. Maybe even the best non-English movie ever made. Could be. At least one of them. Maybe not the best, but at least top 10, because Seven Samurai and movies like that are great too. But this is of course a must watch. South Korean. This is one of the movies that sold me on South Korean cinema. I tried to watch a lot of South Korean movies, and they always have great cinematography. They have great action. They usually have great acting, good use of colors, stuff like that. But sometimes they're too much Hollywood, so too simplified, and try to use the same tricks again and again that they know work from other movies. That's kind of my point with this Hollywoodized movie cinema. They try to do the things that work, because when a movie costs a lot of money, you don't want to take too many chances. And Old Boy took all the chances it could take. So I really like that, because it feels new, it feels fresh. It's always you always think one thing will happen and something else will happen that totally makes sense into the storyline. Vertigo. This one is really a beautiful movie again after Hitchcock. What the hell? How many movies does he have on the list? He's not that great a director, god damn it. But anyway, this is a simplified story. Yet again, the story is simplified. There's not much to it. It does appear deeper than it actually is, but if it was written today, there would be much more story elements to it. It would be deeper, it would be more philosophical, it would be more intellectual. It's simplified, it's really, really long, but wow, it's beautiful. With the color use in the movie is just fantastic. Everything is just well filmed. Every scene just looks beautiful. But that's what it is. It is a bunch of scenes that looks really, really great. But if you look at the story by itself, it's not perfect. It's good and would work for 90 minutes maybe, but it's a bit too drawn out. Again, Alfred Hitchcock. Slower paced movies. A lot of these the stuff guys like, right? Like cool action heroes guys that kick ass and stuff like that. Agent story, thriller stories, a lot of guys movies, but a bit too slow for modern cinema. There's Boot, again, several versions of it. I think our Dashboard or whatever. Wolfgang Petersen, good director actually. I think he did one of my favorite. Let's see. I think Troy. I love Troy. Air Force One is also really good director. Nah, I don't like Perfect Storm, but Troy, I love Troy. Fantastic movie. But Das Boot is again a presentation of World War II. Again, this movie for Germans to see German history. Again, just like with the Japanese war movie we saw, this Grave of Fireflies. Again, is to feel a bit ashamed of your history, but also feel a bit honored about the fight that you put up with. But as a story in itself, it's okay, but not fantastic. But I do get the cultural relevance of movies like this one. Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. It kind of jumped the shark at a few points in time, because the story takes a weird direction at times. It's not where you thought it would go after the first one. I don't know why I only gave it 6, but I think it's because the story kind of doesn't feel fit well together with the first one. But it's still a good movie. It's highly watchable. I would watch it today because there's so many great science fiction elements in this movie. So yeah, 6, maybe because of the story, because it's like he didn't give that much about the story. Yeah. Once Upon a Time in America. Sergio Leone again. Acting with music over the scenes, and then putting voiceover after in post-production. It just doesn't work. It's an okay story, but it's really drawn out movie. You could cut 1 hour from it, you will still have the story intact. I like it. It's a thriller, a mystery, but it works. It actually works. And even of course it's a bit slow paced and not as well made as many modern thrillers like Gone Girl, for example, but it's highly watchable and really interesting. I love seeing history in movies. I love seeing scenes from the past, like 60s and before that, and from the 30s. I love that kind of cinema. And this is really scenes from the 30s, right? They didn't try to recreate something that doesn't look quite believable. This is the real stuff. Amelie, I actually don't know why guys watch this movie, because it's totally a chick flick, totally. And if I had to describe it with few words, I would describe it as hipster chick flick, because it's prototypical hipster movie. Everything about it is hipster, and it's also one of these kind of movies. Or if you have newly educated architects that goes out and designs his first building, he would put all his ideas into the building, so it feels like kind of modern piece of art, right? Because a lot of the ideas he thought up are all in that building, so it's a mismatch of different ideas, and a lot of people will be interested in that because it looks crazy and new and interesting. And with Amelie, it does feel like they try to put all the ideas into a movie. Like a lot of scenes are just randomly put into the movie. And I would not recommend it to guys, not at all. Witness for prosecution. Actually, this is one of those that I don't remember that well. I do remember it. It's a court case, but it's not well-made court case. It doesn't really feel realistic. And again, it's a bit old movie, so does feel a bit drawn out at times. But with this movie, it feels a bit silly. So if I watch a court drama, I want it to be a bit realistic, so I can really think that this could happen in real life. Billy Wilder, I like him. But again, I gave it 6, not because it's a terrible movie, but because it does what it sets out to do, but not much more than that, and it really doesn't. Not so much more to that movie than the basics. Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino. I like this movie. Again, 7 is because I like the movie. I don't give movies 7 if I don't like them. But again, it's a basic story. Not even much action in it because it's a really cheap movie. So you don't see a great big bank heist or a big fantastic and well-made shootout sequence or stuff like that. It's a simple movie with really great story in it. One of his best, I'd say, Quentin Tarantino's. Braveheart. A lot of people have started to dislike it because it's not realistic. For example, his dress. That's not how people dressed back then. So a lot of it does feel unrealistic historically. And it's, for example, how old was he in real life? I think he was like beginning 20s, maybe 23 or something like that, right? But Mel Gibson, he's a grown adult man here. So a lot of William Wallace, that's what his name is. But it's really entertaining movie. So entertaining factor through the roof, historical factor really low. Still, you don't need to have the movie be historically accurate, and doesn't promise you to be historically accurate. So if you want this history, then read a book, watch a documentary or stuff, or something like that. This is the basics, and the basics of a movie is to entertain, and this surely does that. One of Mel Gibson's best movies, if not his best actually. At least directed by him, right? Clockwork Orange, Stanley Kubrick again. It does appear a bit deeper and more philosophical than it actually is. It's pretty basic. So in the 70s, yeah, I do understand how it was considered great back then. Toy Story 3, I loved this movie when I saw it. I was totally obsessed about it because everything just works, everything fits together. The story is so entertaining. I don't know if I would give it 10 and watch it again, maybe 8 or something like that. But when I watched it, I was really entertained by it. And the effects in the movie, the CGI in the movie, was amazing. So it all worked. Requiem for a Dream. Again, one of these movies that try to really touch you and make you feel a certain way. And for me, it's not enough. It needs to have more story, not just people suffering, and that's that. Taxi Driver, again, I like Scorsese, but this is again an over-the-top movie about a crazy guy in New York. Why do people love it? Yeah, it's well made. A lot of interesting stuff happens in the movie. Double Indemnity. Actually, it was an entertaining watch. A bit slow at times, a bit simple. That's the problem with these old movies, because every character is simple. So it does feel like they are two-dimensional. And that's, of course, this is really important in that age and time. Because firstly, you didn't have that many university students, right? You didn't have many well-educated people. So most people who would watch movies would not have had a university degree. Today you can make a movie just for professors and still earn money on that movie, because we have so many professors in the world today. But back then, people are not that experienced in movie watching. So they need something simple. They need something to just I come back from the mines, I want to watch a movie, whatever, right? Or taxi. I come back from my taxi job, I need to watch a simple movie, and that's that. To Kill a Mockingbird, only rated at 6. I kind of like the book. I also like the movie. The actors are great in it, and it's a well-made movie. But again, it's a simple story, simply told. Basic, so 6 is fitting. Lawrence of Arabia, one of the best movies ever made, of course. If you have seen it, you will understand why I say that. Don't watch it on the computer screen. Watch it on a huge TV on the cinema. Because one of the great things about this movie is how beautiful everything looks. And it was also filmed on 70 millimeters, so it's a huge camera with really everything. The picture is crisp, everything looks beautiful, and you can even notice the details in the picture. That's something you don't always see in these old movies. Highly recommended, but of course you've already watched it. Everyone has. Eternal Sunshine of Spotless Mind. I enjoyed it, but again, it's a drama. It's a romance. I'm not a big sucker for romance because they can be a bit simple at times. I like this one. It's not that as simple as could have been. A lot of sci-fi elements to the movie, but it is a romance. It is a basic movie, and there's not much to the story. Full Metal Jacket. It has one beginning and a different end, so it goes from one place to another place. And I think, yeah, I like the training better, I think. But all in all, it does feel a bit long for what it is. And also a simple story. And it also doesn't feel that realistic, actually. I've seen many other war movies that feel much more real to real life. Much more true to real life. While this does feel like a movie. Because it's Stanley Kubrick. He sets up everything perfectly. So everything looks perfect. Amadeus. Everyone has watched it. Again, it's not the real true story, but it is reimagining of the true story made into a movie. And it works because sometimes you need to add certain elements into the movie to make it a really exciting story. And this is such an exciting story. This Thing. Wonderful movie. So well made, and everything just fits together. And this is really how you make a heist movie. Everything fits together, everything works, everything is paced the correct way, so nothing feels too slow, and nothing feels like it doesn't belong into the movie. So we go from one place to another place, and everything makes sense story-wise. I actually want to look this director up. Singing in the Rain. I really like this movie. It's highly entertaining. So the music is good, the dancing is great, the storyline is fantastic, and the blonde woman in the movie, yes, she's so damn funny. I really love her. I think that's one of the reasons I gave it 8, because that's just such a fantastic actress. But it is a simple movie and it's a musical, so whatever. I think musical can only be, they cannot be fantastic because I'm not a huge fan of musicals. Bicycle Thief, just the quality alone of the screen, of the picture, was enough to not rate it 8. Not even 6, because the quality is just so bad today. And I rated it low, 4, because the story is also depressing. Again, this is a movie made for the Italian mindset, or the post-war mindset, where everyone was really poor, especially in Italy. First they fought for the Nazis, and then later in the war they fought for the Allied. At the end, they got beaten up both sides. Lost everything because, wow, what a huge spectacle they were in the war. Lost every single battle. I think they won a few battles in Africa and that's that. They couldn't even take over Greece. Yeah. Had Hitler do it for them. It's a touchy-feely movie. Again, it's an important part of Italian culture to understand the post-war period, but I'd rather watch a documentary, because if the story is not there, I'd rather watch a documentary to just see what actually went on. And you cannot, I think it's impossible to rate it 7 or higher than that, because when it's not that well made, when the acting is not great, you have to rate it lower. A lot of people love this movie, 2001, A Space Odyssey. Again, Stanley Kubrick, everything is set up perfectly, but yet again, everything is set up so perfectly that it feels like you're watching one scene after another scene. And sometimes stuff in movies, a lot of scenes need to be a bit faster than other scenes, because you need story progression. You don't just need to watch scene after scene after scene after scene. This is what you do in a Stanley Kubrick movie, where everything is set up perfectly. That's actually one of the big mistakes a director can make. He thinks up scenes. He thinks up a scene, and it's a wonderful scene, and it just it feels really great in his own mind, and it does look great on the page. But then when you put all the scenes together, it's scene after scene after scene. A movie is supposed to be an actor that experienced something, right? A character that experienced something goes from one place to another place, and we follow him, we follow his pace. But if the director controls everything, we follow his vision. So the actors are not even in the central element. The vision is the central element, and that's what I think is why I don't like Stanley Kubrick that much. And yeah, I'll just look it up. Wait. Ridley Scott, yeah, that's the other guy that also he has great vision, but again we lose sight of the story, because his vision is in the center of everything. So you need everything. You need to talk with the actors. What do the actors think? What do the cameraman think? What do CGI people think? You need to fit it all together, and it's a collective vision. Okay, we have a collective vision, and especially the script needs to be in place for it to be a great movie. If you ignore the script, if you ignore the pacing of the script, then you will lose some of the good story structure elements. And Stanley Kubrick does that all the time. He loses side of the story. Inside Out, it's okay. Simplified version of the brain. This is not how the brain works. As I'm a psychologist, so a lot of psychologists love this movie because it is about the brain and feelings and stuff like that. That every feeling is important. If I had to make a movie about feelings, this would not be it. Not even if it was a cartoon, because all the feelings we have play a certain part. Yeah, the movie presented that well, but why do they play a certain part? An important part. Because they are part in how we communicate and how we show our emotions to communicate something, and also how we react on something. If we are hurt, we need to show pain so we can get help, but also show pain to our own self so we don't hurt that area even more. Snatch, over the top, Guy Ritchie. Guy Ritchie, goddammit. He's made one fantastic movie, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, I think it's called. And then Snatch, probably his second movie. And then after that it was crap after crap after crap after crap. He has not made one single good movie after that. I'm pretty sure he hasn't. Snatch is okay. That's a bit all over the place. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Again, I like it. 7. Good, good rating. The movie for atheists, the movie for intelligent atheists, because it's a well-structured critique of. No, this is actually not that movie. This is King Arthur, but it's well-structured critique of maybe not religion as much in this movie, but then about a critique of rulerships and kings and a lot of that kind of stuff. So people like it because it's a bit intellectual, but it's also a simple movie and cheap movie. The Kid, simple movie. A Kid, Charlie Chaplin, also short. You see here. The Tramp, one of his iconic roles, but just because it's an iconic role doesn't mean that it's one of his best movies ever. It does get crazy at times, and some of the scenes feel like they don't belong in the movie. But it's a heartfelt movie. Also old, you have to give it that. I don't give movies credit for just for being old. I don't give them high ratings for being old. I know that's what maybe 99% of all people do. So if a movie is really old and it's okay, then they give it a really high rating because wow, that's for that period of time it's well made. I compare all movies to all movies. I find some great elements in old movies because I love to see this old stuff, old cars, old buildings, old clothes. I love this kind of stuff. And I will rate it a bit higher because I see all that stuff and I'm so fascinated by the historical elements in movies. I'm a sucker for that. But just for being old, no. Won't rate it higher for that. I'm sorry. Toy Story, first 3D movie ever made, right? So at least a full movie, this is the first one. And it's so well made. So it really started in the right track. Today, not all 3D cartoons are great, but back then, I can tell you it was, everything just was great because it was so hard to make on the computer in the beginning that you needed to have a good story because otherwise you couldn't get it made, right? Today, you can write a crap story and make a 3D cartoon in half a year. For a few dollars more, Sergio Leone. I rated it 8. I actually like it. It doesn't feel too long. It's really simple, but it's a simple story, and it works because you always follow the title character. It doesn't jump from story to story like in many of his other movies. They kind of jump from picture to picture to show you what he can film with his great camera. This actually follows the storyline, and it's a simple storyline. It works. LA Confidential, great movie. Of course, you know that. You have probably watched it already. I need to look up the director. I've already looked up all the directors and actors. Don't worry about that. But sometimes I forget what else they have made. And Rashomon. This is the retelling. A crime has been committed. Oh, not film that. A crime has been committed, and then different people tell it differently. So, for example, as I remember, there's a witch that tells it as something magical has happened, like some grand wizard has killed some other man, stuff like that. And everyone has their own retelling of the crime because they want to get their point across, and they want to be found not guilty of the crime, right? But for me, this doesn't really work because it's just different retelling of a story, and there's not, the real story is not there. Just a crime has been committed. That's that. Again, why do people love it? I think they love it because a lot of these the movies on the list, Rashomon is a movie about movie telling, right? It's a retelling of a story, and the story always changes. This is what you get with movies, and this is what you get with remakes and stuff like that. This is what you have, why you have so many movies about scriptwriters or directors or actors. For example, LA Confidential. Again, we have actors in this movie because the people who make movies love people who make movies. That's what it is. A lot of these movies are about script writers a lot of these movies, for example, this movie Singing in the Rain, it's about making movies. How many people do you know that work full time with making movies? Not many. But on this list, a lot of these people, a lot of these movies are about making movies in some way or another. Maybe not directly, but there will be the idea of movie making made into a movie. That's what it is. They are, these people, some of them are arrogant. Maybe they just know about their own life. They know, okay, how does it feel like sitting at home writing a script? Okay, I know that because I feel bad for myself, right? So I'm writing a movie about that because that's something I know something about. That's what people in the industry want to see. So you're much more likely to get an Oscar if you make a movie about movie making. Just that's how it is. People want to see themselves on screen or something they can relate to. Yeah, but I think this was my second edition. This was number 100. So, and I hope you didn't get mad at some of my ratings, because for example here I rated a 5. It is a slow-paced movie, and when the pace is too slow, I'm not really there, right? You kind of lose me as a movie. And some of these old movies do not know how to keep a good pace. And this is also some of the problems you have with old cameras, because you can film about 10 minutes, then you need to change the tape, right? So you film 10 minutes, change the tape, and everything needs to be perfect, because everything costs money. Every single minute you film costs money, right? So everything is set up perfectly, and you usually need to know what you do and not just film a scene 100 times. You can do that if you have a lot of money, but usually know what you do, know where you film from, only use one camera. Today you can use 20 cameras. You can get the perfect scene every single time because you can select the right camera, right? You can also use one camera, like David Fincher still uses digital camera, but he only uses one, so he knows exactly what the viewer will see on screen, and that's perfect because you cannot just switch from camera to camera. But still, there's some story elements that will not work if you don't know how to use analog cameras. And that's what you get with some of these movies like Rashomon. Too slow, and the camera is too too boring because it doesn't move that much as you can do with digital cameras. I know I hate shaky cam. I hate cameras that move too much, but if you have just a little bit of movement to the camera, then you feel like you're watching something, like you're in a world and you explore the world. And in Rashomon, you just have one camera filming one location and people talking. That's it. It's a basic storytelling. Okay, that's it.